architectural and engineering examiners to order. Um, do you have to start off with a little speech first? No speech? Okay, good.
Actually, I will say before we get going, just to make sure that your microphone is pointed towards your mouth. And if you turn your head, sometimes they have a hard time picking up. So try and remain pointed at the microphone. If the mute side is lit up, that means nobody can hear you. If you hit speak, your microphone will shut off when you're not speaking. Otherwise, Mr. Chairman, I can go right into a roll call.
That's great.
Okay. We'll start with Mr. Tibbs.
Present.
Mr. Burside.
Here.
Mr. Bricktaw.
Here.
Mr. Parker.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Barrick.
Here.
Ms. Doss.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Wagster.
Here.
Mr. Heathcote.
I'm right here.
Mr. King.
Here.
All right, everyone's present and accounted for.
Okay. I'd like to acknowledge today's guest. I think we have one person in person.
We're drawing a big crowd.
Yeah. Are there?
We have Casey Anderson joining us in person. And let's see, let me make sure we have Mr. Ridley on the WebEx call.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would have been there in person, but I didn't know it was permissible.
Well, we're managing as we go.
Okay. I'm very happy here in the law office, but I miss seeing you live and direct.
We'll keep you posted for next time.
Okay.
All right. Review it. Anyone have any agenda changes at this point? Okay, hearing none, we can move into the professional society. Or wait, Mr. Chairman, we approve the minutes from the June meeting.
Oh yeah, thank you. I assume everyone has had an opportunity to look at the meeting minutes from last week. If there's any corrections, please note them. Otherwise, for motion for approval.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Quick point of order, the people online, do we need to do a roll call for those that are any kind of motion that are off? We had to when we were offline before.
Well, my understanding is while we have a physical quorum, voice votes are acceptable.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Michael, it's Morgan real quick. Can we say who did the first? I'm so sorry. I couldn't barely hear who it was.
Oh, who did the motion?
Who was the first one to make the motion?
It was me, Rick Thompson.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that will move us into the professional society reports. Casey, would you like to go first?
Okay, pleasure being with you. I am Casey Anderson with ACEC Tennessee and the Tennessee Society of Professional Engineers. We've got a whole bunch of events coming up that I want to make sure are on the radar and the radar of those who like to watch this online. A remarkable number of people tell me they do. The Engineers Conference, All Engineers Conference, is September 12th to 14th. I am hoping that later today you all will take a vote to approve our plea to have at least a or two or all of the engineers on this board to be allowed to come and speak at our conference at the Professional Engineers Luncheon, which is Tuesday, September 14th at lunchtime. to talk about and on a very high level licensure and some of the requests made going forward of the board. So hopefully y'all can find a way to do that at some point today. I would appreciate it. But we've got 6 educational tracks in that we are going full. We're at the Franklin Marriott, and we are going to be in person and are starting to look at how do we reconfigure the schedule some to make sure that we don't have that we've got appropriate COVID stuff in place, because I feel like a month from now we're going to be in an important time. So that's September 12th to 14th. Looking for you all on the 14th, but would welcome you the whole time. We are having for the first time a Steel Bridge Forum on October the 14th. It is going to be a partnership with ACEC, TDOT, and the National Steel Bridge Alliance. Really looking forward to that. It's been a big year. The opening session of our conference that will be all the engineers will also be about the I-40 bridge in Memphis. So that's going to be, it's a great year to kick off a Steel Bridge Forum, I think. Excited about that. Our Engineering Excellence Awards are November the 4th. You all will, I hope, receive invitations and are welcome to come. We would love to have you. It's going to be a great night. We are doing risk strategies road show this year that we typically do in at least 3 locations around the state. We do that jointly with the local chapters of AIA through risk strategies, but it's all about the sessions themselves are all about mitigating risk and health, safety, and welfare for architects and engineers. So those are typically around the state over a 3-day period in December. This year, we're going to do them all at once. Unfortunately, it's the same day as your meeting on December the 2nd. But we're going to do it live in Nashville, out on Atrium Way, and have it a hybrid meeting where people can also get in remotely from around the state. So we think that will be the best option for everyone. Our leadership PE class is going to kick back off in January with a new cohort. So that information will come out in the next week or 2, but I'm excited that has proven to be a really outstanding way to develop the leaders of this industry. So it's exciting about that. And the last thing I will say is we have a PE exam review class that is supposed to start on Monday. And we only have 4 people signed up. And it's not for lack of trying. And I really think that the issue is the same one that we've had. We went back and forth, I think, with Wanda the last couple of weeks, saying like, this list doesn't look right of the new PEs. And it's because some of them are taking the exam online now, right? Taking the computer test. So now that the computer test is here and they can take it really at different times, we would love your thoughts on what we need to do. I feel like the PE exam review class is really strong and helpful for a lot of those students to sort of put it all together, and some help with, not today, but whenever you're thinking about it long term, on how we might reconfigure that class, because you all know the same thing and are going, how do we manage the change in that schedule? Because it used to be it was a 10-week class that started 10 weeks prior to the exam date. And so that no longer is valid. So it's interesting. So I don't know that we're going to be able to make that class work this time, which will be terrible if we don't have some last minute folks. The other thing about the new class is we typically, in our chapters around the state, honor the new PEs. That's a weird process now too. We changed the way that y'all do this is not a certificate comment, other than I made a really pretty certificate that is a certificate of achievement for the new PEs that we give, so that y'all can handle the real certificates any way you like, which worked out. I did that in Manchester last week with our Southern Middle Tennessee chapter. But the issue is too, I know you all tend to be involved in those a lot of the time. Those are no longer going to be standard times either. So I think thinking through how do we reach out to those people and congratulate them appropriately in a timely-ish manner is an interesting conundrum. So we get systems changing, that's all. But there's a lot going on, and we would appreciate at the conference y'all being there, and any advice you have on how we manage the new and improved system.
I have just a quick, well, one or two things. One is I'm looking through the agenda and I don't see that that's on the agenda. And if we in fact need authorization from the board or from the department to speak at the luncheon, can we add it as an agenda item?
There's no vote required.
Can we can just do it?
If you're invited, yeah, you can go.
Okay. Say, well, I paid my fee, so I guess I'm invited.
I think you just got invited. Everybody did, it sounds like.
Very good, and thank you. And second thing, in a couple of answers to your questions. One, have you considered videotaping some of the lessons for the PE and just offering them online that people could get to whenever they wanted it?
I think we're going to have to do that.
I think that would be about the only way. Again, they're going to have access to, 6-8 times a year they can go sit for and take the PE. So if we offer that as a resource, which I think is fantastic, and I know it's been very, very helpful, and also it's been good for TSPE. Having something done on video where people can just go access it as they need to. But there also probably needs to be some sort of a follow-up venue where if they have questions.
Right, that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that is live back and forth.
Yeah, it is. And I'm not exactly sure how you deal with that. I mean, it would be asking a lot of the people that come and help prepare the applicants for the exam to also be available to answer questions or give individual instructions. That will take some thought. But thank you for asking that.
I appreciate it.
Anything we can do to help.
Thanks.
Questions?
Brian, this is maybe for Michael and Wanda. In our next engineering committee meeting, let's talk very briefly about this new conversion to CBT. And is there anything we need to kind of have let's all make sure we're on the same page so we can understand it if we get asked questions or something too. You are miles ahead of where we are as far as knowing what's going on, but I mean, it does change the process a little bit, and just making sure, like the question I had yesterday, I didn't have any idea of what exactly we were doing. And I think we can all kind of make sure we're talking the same thing. So if we do have questions from our applicants or people, asking certain things, or it'll just help us all to kind of be on the same page. I know the architects have been doing this for a while, so they've got it all under control, but we don't, right? Rick's got it all under control anyway. I'm confident of that. If we could do that and add it to our agenda just so we have 10 minutes worth of here's what we're going to do kind of stuff.
10 minutes?
Well, I didn't add the Alton factor into that.
Yeah, I've made a note here. We'll make sure to get that on the agenda for the next committee meeting.
Pleasure seeing everyone in person.
I'm going to call out the next person on the phone.
Mr. Ridley, who's on the
Yes.
the WebEx.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thanks, Michael. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm Nathan Ridley. I'm here virtually on behalf of the Tennessee chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects. Thanks for the opportunity. Just a few items. Our conference, we're pumped and cautiously optimistic that it will occur in Nashville on November the 19th to the 22nd, and that's a national conference. Our local chapter is very excited to be hosting that and pumped. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, and I think it'll be good for our city and our state. More to point we have a special election down in Hamilton County. Rick, you might remember State Representative Mike Carter, a veteran lawmaker, passed this year, and there will be a special election on September the 14th in House District 29 to fill that seat. Those are always, the reason I mention it is those are always very, very low turnout elections. So if you know anyone that's registered that lives in that district and registered to vote, be sure to encourage them to vote. It is contested. The Republican candidate is Greg Vidal, and the Democratic candidate is D'Angelo Jelks. And they're both running pretty hard. It's probably a Republican seat. Representative Carter was a Republican from Ottawa. Let's see, the legislative session will begin on January the 11th, and they'll hit the ground running this year. There'll be no organizational recess period. Governor Lee's proposed budget will be due February the 7th. Big issues for the legislature this year will be redistricting. Probably the biggest issue for them, because it affects them directly, is redistricting. You all know that the Constitution requires, after the census numbers come out, that legislative bodies redistrict the seats so that they're all about the same. Population-wise, they'll make an ideal House seat about 70,000, 69 or 70,000, and then a Senate seat will be 3 times that at 209 or 210. Generally, the population in our state is coalescing around our large urban areas. We have 31 counties that showed negative growth from 2010 to 2020. So that'll make some pinch points, particularly in West Tennessee. They're going to lose a seat or 2 in the House, and Middle Tennessee will pick up a seat or 2 in the House. Let's see. And then last but not least, I can't not mention this. I was looking for something else for a continuing legal education program I'm going to teach, and I came across something from the Municipal Technical Advisory Service in their quarterly newsletter from June of 2021. And the topic is contracting for design professional services in Tennessee. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Sharon Rollins, who has been a longtime warrior at MTAS, because she goes through very carefully, in just a page, qualifications-based selection. And she does a little bit of Q&A. Why follow the QBS selection process? ? Point number 1, it's the law. And she goes through it and sort of walks through how a local community should do that, because everyone on this call and in this meeting knows it's procuring or securing professional services are different from buying a box of pencils. And there's a process to be followed to do that. Price is a factor, but it's not the only factor. So just wanted to give Miss Rollins, a little bit of a shout out there. And again, thank y'all. Sorry to boo-boo on my logistics at the next meeting. If we're able, I'll try to be there live and direct, and happy to respond to your questions.
Questions for Nate?
Sorry, one comment.
Thank y'all.
Hey, Nathan, I did want to point out, and you may not have known this, but Sharon was also on the QBS committee, along with several of my esteemed colleagues on this board that helped craft the language for the QBS policy.
Yes, she's been a rock star for trying to coach up cities, particularly those are her constituent base, and we have 340 of them in Tennessee, so she's got a big target audience. So I was just tickled, since I know we've spent a lot of time in the past on that topic, and I was just tickled while I was looking for something else to come about a full page and just a 8 or 10 page newsletter about the topic. But thanks for mentioning that. Yes, she's great. Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you. I missed Michael. Was Ashley on, or anybody else on?
I don't see Ashley. And I don't see Mr. Baltimore either.
If I can make, this is Melanie. If I can make reference to Don Baltimore, he is not well today, and so he will not be attending or reporting.
Thank you, Melanie.
I guess we can, if there's no more professional society reports, we can move on to the legal report.
Good morning. This is Stuart Huffman, Associate General Counsel. Number one on the legal report, 2021-03-2371. Complainant alleges respondent was hired by a city to falsify a report concerning a leaning retaining wall that complainant constructed. Complainant claims he built the wall as instructed by the building inspector. Respondent states in the alleged falsified report that the wall is against code and backfilled with clay. The report mentions no drain pipe, yet complainant claims there is. Further, complainant alleges he was trying to fix the leaning wall. However, the building inspector allowed the building to be constructed in front of the wall. The building inspector eventually stopped construction because of the leaning wall, and the respondent was paid to lie about the wall construction. Respondent denies any and all allegations. He states that he met on site with the two attorneys involved with this matter to make an inspection of a leaning retaining wall. After the inspection, respondent took the data and performed engineering calculations to analyze the wall construction to see if it meets the IBC requirements based upon field observations. Respondent claims the analysis and report were based upon the data that was collected on the date of the inspection, the IBC required loads, and standard engineering practices. The report is clear and represents the work performed and opinions based on professional experience of respondent. Respondent believes he performed his duties diligently, ethically, and within the standard of care. A review of the pictures and report verifies the respondent's report looks properly and thoroughly done. His conclusion that the retaining wall is not adequate is correct based on the pictures of the leaning wall that is in the process of failing. The claims of the complainant that the city inspectors told him how to build the wall and that the respondent was paid to falsify a report are unproven. The complainant claims that the soil behind the wall is well-drained gravel and not clay as noted in the respondent's report. The report includes calculations for both well-drained gravel and clay, and in both examples, the stabilizing force of the wall is not adequate. This was reviewed by board member Ricky Bersai. The mitigating factors are no violations found. Report is correct and within standard of care. Recommendation is to close.
Thank you. Ricky, do you want to say anything first before we have any other comments based on your review of this case?
Sure. The report looks to be well done, and the problems that the complainant have really sound like it's with the building official who he claims told him how to build the wall. The engineer came in and looked at the wall that was built, did calculations both for different types of soil that might be behind the wall, since the engineer respondent wasn't present when the wall was built, and in no cases is the wall strong enough, meets the forces required, and what's happening to the wall in some pictures is very clear. It's got a dangerous lean to it. It's clear that the calculations are look totally correct. So there's really, I saw no problem, no issue with the report. It was well done, and it looked like the respondent didn't do anything that would warrant a complaint.
Thank you, Ricky. Any comments?
I mean, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve Ricky's recommendation, but I do want to have one quick comment. I wonder if this retaining wall was designed, if it's a wall of any kind of substance, you should have a licensed engineer design it and stamp it, not just something that you freewheel and build out in the middle of somewhere. But I don't know if that's a comment that can go back to the city, that maybe they need to look at having these kind of things designed in the future, because that gives everybody a basis to go from, the same sheet of music, rather than having an inspector's opinion versus a contractor's opinion versus whatever. And anyway, that's just a comment, but I'll make a motion that we approve Ricky's recommendation.
Thanks.
This is Frank Waxter. I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a
I have similar questions as Robert does. Is like who, if anybody, designed this? Surely, Ricky, when you were reviewing this, that thought came to mind. Do you have any more input you could give us on that? It's like, how did this come to be in the first place?
Right. Yeah, there was no evidence that a design by a professional was done for the wall. I think the statements in the file by the complainant said the code official told the complainant how to build the wall. And we don't know whether that's true or not.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion, a proper second. All in motion say, signify by saying aye. Sorry, fumbled that. Go ahead.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is that what we're supposed to do?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Number 2, 2021-0971. Complainant complains that respondent placed their stamp, signature, and company name on construction drawings that they did not originally produce. Complainant produced the project plans with another contractor/builder and has no affiliation with respondent. Complainant states the respondent illegally submitted the project plans after stripping complainant's firm name and stamp off for a permit. Complainant has no previous history with the builder who applied for the permit and used its plans. Respondent states the drawings were presented by the builder to obtain a permit. Respondent reviewed the drawings completed by complainant and found no foundation details showing size of footings, reinforcing rebar, size, number, and the compressive strength of the concrete. The first and second floor joist framing was wrong. Respondent claims the complainant told them the design plans were stolen and demanded $2,500, which the builder offered, but complainant later refused because they wanted the respondent to pay. The builder refused to use the original plans after the mistakes found and states the complainant is an architect and not competent as a structural engineer. Review found that the respondent was approached by the builder after the complainant's drawings were allegedly unacceptable. Respondent wiped the complainant's business information and sealed off the drawings and copied his own business information and engineering seal to the drawings to use them as his own. Since no revisions appear to be made to the drawings that now have the seal and signature of the respondent, it appears that the respondent has sealed drawings that were not prepared under his supervision. This was reviewed by board member Frank Waxter. Aggravating factors is stamped drawings of another registrant not under responsible charge. Recommendation is authorize a civil penalty of $2,000, which consists of $500 each for violations of Rule 0120-02-.03, Paragraph 3, 0120-02-.08, Paragraph 5A, 6A, and C. Respondent shall also take and pass the laws and rules exam.
Thank you. Before discussion, did you want to say anything about this, Frank?
Sure, Brian. This particular issue, I guess you'd say, comes when the respondent, first of all, he wanted to tell everybody how much experience he had and all this other stuff as a reason that we ought not to pay any attention to this. But the thing is, down to the basic thing about it, and the reason I quoted these rules is every one of those rules pertain to sealing drawings not under your supervision. And basically, this guy, he complained about the drawings weren't competent for structural engineering. However, on the drawings it says that a structural engineer should be, secured to do the structural design. But this guy just took it, wiped the name of the company and the person that designed it off the drawings and put his on there and didn't change a thing. And so it's pretty clear he's violated these rules.
Thanks, Frank. Discussion? Do I have a motion?
Could you please repeat that? Your microphone wasn't lit up.
Sorry, I had it on mute. Yeah, this is Rick Thompson. I make the motion that we accept the recommendation.
Proper motion.
This is Ben.
Have a second?
I second it.
I second it.
Did someone have some discussion, or was that a second?
That was a second from the phone line.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and proper second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Can I make one quick thing and just a comment? Sorry, I don't know if any other jurisdictions are seeing this. This kind of reminded me. But in Knox County, folks are using the open records request to be able to go get plans that others have prepared. And it's stuff that's exempt. So if you, Rick, design a house for somebody and you get it properly permitted and all this, and somebody likes that house, they'll go, instead of paying an architect to do the plans, they'll go simply do an open records request to get your set of plans that are stamped and go out and build their own house. I didn't know. I mean, this is similar enough to this that it kind of reminded me. Is anybody else seeing this as an issue? Or I don't want to spend a lot of time, but it may be something again to talk about, because we're bordering there on some pretty dangerous stuff, because it's almost like what this guy did. He kind of took the information off, and it didn't even really apply to the project probably that he was doing, and put his own border on it and went forward. So I didn't know if anybody else was seeing that or not. We are in Knox County. It's not rampant, but it's enough that it's starting to be a little bit of an issue. So anyway, I'll show you.
Robert, this is Frank Webster. I was going to ask about that. When they reuse the plans, is the seal of the original designer still on there?
Yeah, because like you can build your own house, right? You can build your own contractor. So they're just taking the plans straight up and not paying the person that did it to do it again and doing it. So it's not a stamping issue as much as it is a proprietary issue, and it's dangerous to build something, I've always thought, on a site or area that maybe not intended to build that structure. You could have just a normal foundation design that was done on a regular set of plans, and they could be building in a swamp, and it doesn't match up. So I mean, again, it's just, if nobody else is experiencing the issue, then it must just be a East Tennessee thing. But I just wanted to kind of alert people to that if it was a possibility or something that we might need to discuss further. I'll shut up.
Yeah, the danger to the architect is somebody uses his plan somewhere else, and like you say, it's not designed for that particular site or whatever. Something goes wrong, guess who gets sued?
Oh, I know.
The original designer. That's the danger to the architect, that they're allowing his plans or his or her plans to be used.
I said I didn't want. It just hit me, and there may be something that we may need to discuss about this in a future session, whether it's an engineering committee, architecture, or laws and rules committee or something, since we've got retreat coming up. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. It's
Number 3, 2021-033-951. Respondent performed inspections on a home built by complainant at the homeowner's request. Complainant disagrees with the report by respondent, as did the findings of 2 other engineers. Complainant requested to look at the property. The disagreement with findings is not the cause for the complaint, but in fact It is the assumptions in the reports on 10/28 of 2020 and a subsequent report on 11/30/2020. The complainant states the reports are full of assumptions and inaccuracies, stating respondent, quote unquote, thinks certain things are required, represents, quote unquote, possible causes of, quote, possible problems, references, quote, common practice for building, quote, common size cracks, and, quote, probable remediation. Respondent allegedly based most of the possible problem analysis on information, some of which was faulty from the homeowner. Complainant says respondent also refers to building codes that do not exist, lack of items that do exist, and, quote, probably remediations that are based on, quote, possible problems. Respondent explains that the homeowner filed a complaint and lawsuit against the complainant for faulty workmanship and other issues and believes this is in retaliation. Respondent has performed 3 site inspections and found multiple issues. The main concern of the homeowner was vertical cracking in basement retaining wall. The retaining wall is 8 foot 8 inches tall, measured above the concrete slab on grade in the basement. There are 4 different vertical cracks in the basement wall, which is essentially new construction as of May of 2020. And respondent also alleges complainant stated in writing that they did not use any vertical rebar in the 12-inch CMU retaining walls, even though the walls retaining approximately 8 foot 8 inches of unbalanced fill. Complainant further allegedly told homeowner in writing or by phone that they used no rebar in the foundations. There is a large crack in the concrete slab on grade in the basement and extends from the front retaining wall of the house to the rear wall of the house. Respondent states that based on the information given that assumptions sometimes need to be made, especially when not present at the time of the build. Respondent believes its design and analysis using software proves that the walls are inadequate for the restrained condition of no rebar was used. Based on tables the respondent referenced from the code, it is inadequate to have no rebar and doesn't meet the ACI code minimums. After review, the respondent's engineering report is thorough, appears to be correct, well documented, and uses appropriate language for someone inspecting work post-construction. The letters that rebut the respondent's report are not as thorough as the respondent's report. This was reviewed by board member Ricky Bursai. Mitigating factors are no violations found. Engineer report is correct and appropriate. No aggravating factors. Recommendation is to close. And sorry for all the quotes.
That's okay. Thank you. It's kind of interesting once you get to the end of the story after it all. But I guess being consistent, Ricky, did you want to state anything about this case?
Yes, Brian. We the complainant in this case, the home builders, just to sum it up, the home builders and the home is about a year old, and the homeowner is mainly concerned about cracks in basement walls, and so hired this engineer to inspect. And so there's the problem that the home builders have is what the report showed were several things, and the language in the report was perfectly appropriate for somebody coming in looking at something that they didn't witness being built. All of us, when we're called in that situation, have to make statements like conditional, and nothing is 100% sure, but all the language was appropriate. The engineer, the respondent engineer, made several observations and tied those observations back to code and included calculations and code references that backed up his position, and I think gave some good recommendations about how to go forward and deal with the problem. And so since this looks like it's probably going to a lawsuit, it probably is kind of a retaliation from the home builders here. But as far as what the engineer did, it all looked good report. Everything looked correct, made sense. The engineers that came in and rebutted the engineers' reports that either the report stated they were hired by the home builders or it seemed that way. Their report was very short, a little bit of hand waving about how temperature differences can cause cracking, but wasn't anywhere near as thorough as the report that the respondent made. So I didn't see any good cause for a complaint against this respondent.
Thanks, Ricky. Looks like Alton has a comment.
It's unusual, I know. Well, first of all, I agree with Ricky's recommendation, but second, I've got a procedural or a protocol question for Maria and Stuart. In this complaint, which was officially logged into this organization, and there's an official document, it mentions that two other engineers, which Ricky also mentioned, did not agree with the findings of the respondent. And based on the information that Ricky provided in this report in his review, I'm not exactly certain how two other engineers could find it differently than the respondent found. And I'm curious if based on the fact that we know that there were two other engineers that looked at this and disagreed, and we find in favor of the respondent, what would be the protocol for investigating further the information provided by the other two engineers?
Well, I think like after review, after Ricky's review, if he was to say, hey, I think we need to look into these other two engineers, then that would be something that we would probably open up a complaint and review the reports. But I mean, he also reviewed those two engineers' reports, and I don't know if they just weren't as thorough, and I don't know if they were really hired to look and get into detail. I think it was more just generic. But if that's something that is a concern, we can always open up a complaint and review it.
Sorry, I think there's never an excuse for doing poor engineering, and regardless of if they were hired for a certain scope and they saw the same issues that the respondent saw and reported as failures, then I would think it would be incumbent on them, regardless of who was paying them, to do a more thorough evaluation or recommend that their scope be altered to include a more thorough review. Thank you.
Comments?
My question to the last issue about investigating the other two reports, not knowing what they were hired for, what scope of work they were hired for. I think that's a separate issue. I think that's what you're saying than this, because I wouldn't want to hold up this motion based on that. Are we on the same page on that?
Yes, absolutely, Rick. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Well, can I make a motion?
Sir.
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation to close, and then if you would like to make another motion in regard to the others, then I think that's a separate item, right?
That's a separate item.
So my motion is to close.
You have a motion in? Have a second?
I'll second this, Robert.
Motion, proper second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Ricky, if I could make one comment about Alton's observation, which is a good observation. The engineers' reports, the other engineers' reports were, as I said, very brief. They didn't, I don't think, actually refuted what the respondent's report said directly. They didn't say that his analysis was incorrect or code. They made just a very more observational comment that cracking can happen sometimes with temperature difference. So I agree with you. It wasn't probably their shining moment as an engineer. I just don't know legally where that would go. I guess there's often in court cases expert testimony from two experts that have the opposite opinion. But I don't know if there's enough in those reports to warrant a complaint, but it's a good thought. I don't know what, I'm not sure what else to say about that, but I think your comment deserved a response.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah, this is Frank. I guess the thing that kind of concerns me, like the others, is, in the report it says that the letters were written to rebut the respondent's report. And so, Ricky, was there anything in there that actually was in, there was a difference between theirs and the actual respondent's report?
I guess it was almost like they just didn't deal with the respondent. Tied his report to looking at the code, seeing that a CMU wall in a basement, that it did require rebar in it for vertical support, and he was told, the builder told the homeowner, they didn't use any rebar in the block, and that the block should have been filled more than it was, and the floor was cracking, it had no control joints in it, and so there were these things that the respondent noted, tying it back to code and good practice, that were very useful. The engineer's rebuttal just said, cracks can happen when there's a temperature difference, when you're dealing with a masonry wall, when there's a temperature difference during construction between the inside surface and the outside surface, and that can cause cracks. And the engineer, the respondent engineer, saw those comments and said, that's so, but it didn't really apply in this case. There wasn't a temperature difference the way it really didn't apply in this case. So it was like the rebuttal engineers didn't really deal with everything that the respondent dealt with. It was more, hey, this could happen. This can happen. There are more ways to produce cracks than, or other ways that cracks can happen. It was that kind of comment.
Yeah, it's just amazing. You've got an unreinforced 8-foot plus feet tall concrete wall that's a basement, it's a retaining wall. And I can't imagine any engineer doing a rebuttal wouldn't say that's not right.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
I mean, it sounded like they were hired by the complainant to dispute what the respondent said, but that's not. I mean, an ethical engineer is not going to just make up or try to make it look like.
Right.
That's different.
Yeah. I will not say, I will not say that it's not complaint worthy. I didn't think of that as I was concentrating on the respondent's position, but it could be complaint worthy.
I guess my only concern is we don't, those two engineers, we don't know anything about the parameters, and we're making our assumptions based off of what we feel like. We don't know what they saw, what they were told to look at, or anything. I don't know if there's worthy to maybe keep an eye on them or anything, just to make sure kind of the type of work they're doing. But it's so hard, somebody could have given them a photograph. You just never know what all that their parameters were. I think with this case, we probably should just stay specific to this case, but that's kind of what my feeling is. We just don't know, and until we start trying to bring things up against them. I think Alton, you were next.
I'll relinquish mine and let Blair speak first.
Just a quick question, Ricky. If the two engineers that wrote a letter to rebut the respondent's report, they apparently read the respondent's report, correct?
That's a good question. I'm looking right now to see if they did.
What I'm wondering is if that's in writing that they're referencing that letter, then that to me raises the flag that they're looking at someone's report and taking issue with that. Now they put it in writing that they disagree with that report. That's okay, but I think that opens maybe possibly a different door. You see where I'm going with that thought?
Yeah, I can't find any evidence that they read the other engineer's report.
So I would then assume that they went to the site, reviewed it on their own with some type of request by the home builder to review it and to provide an opinion. So they possibly did not review the respondent's report. Where I'm going with that is I think that if you're challenging another report, then you better have the facts together. And it seems like from what you are saying, Ricky, their responses were not that thorough, not as thorough as the respondent's report. So that's
correct.
Yes, thank you. And if this truly is about the protection of the public's health, safety, and welfare, I think there is a due diligence responsibility for anybody holding a professional license to do that sort of more thorough investigative review than was apparently done by those two engineers, which again, I think merits a complaint. And what the complaint would do would give them the opportunity to respond. And if in their response there's justification for what they did, this board will have the opportunity to review that and take the necessary action. And as an associate member, I can't make that motion. We've already dispensed with the recommendation. The board has voted on this particular respondent, but my recommendation to the board would be that we consider entering a complaint and to give these two engineers an opportunity to respond.
So
you're next, Robert.
Let me just go ahead and ask Stuart and Ricky, and I don't know if we need to officially open a complaint or just ask Ricky to do a little bit more investigation to see what the process was that those other two reports came up, because Blair's right. I mean, if they reviewed this other guy's report, they should have responded directly to the facts of that report and said, no, it can't be this, it's got to be this, or this is one option, but here's some other options that could occur. However, if they were just provided a photograph, or a builder came and said, hey, what causes cracks in a foundation, which we've all had those questions, right? When we get met at the bar, hey, I've got these cracks in my foundation, or I've got this, or I've got that. What do you think? Can you just write me a letter saying that's yeah, sure, that's another. And we don't, we just kind of do it without really trying to find some, looking at everything because we ask a question. So were they refuting the report or not? So I don't know if that needs to come in form of a motion, or if it's just, let's look a little further in the complaint, get a few more facts against what the other engineers are doing and how they came up with the basis for their letter. If somebody just called them and said, hey, you've been doing some of my work for a while, we've got some cracks in our foundation, what can cause some of those cracks? And you go, well, you got this, and this, and oh yeah, heat will cause that. Well, can you put that, heat kind of causes that sometimes? Or did they look at this other report and go, I've got the facts in front of me, I'm going to refute? And that's two different, and I think that's exactly what we've been saying. Those are two different kind of animals there. So if I don't know, again, not a motion or whatever, but, and then it may turn into a complaint if we find that out.
Well, I would say that with this complaint itself, one that was already voted to close, that would be closed. However, the board can request admin to open up another complaint against the two engineers, and then we would review it just like we would any other complaint.
Oh, that would be my request then.
Hey, Robert.
Yes.
Or Brian, could add a little bit. To be a little more information, the two engineers look to work. It looks like they work for the same firm, and one engineer was called out and met the builders and the homeowner and looked at the cracks, and so then sent one of his associate civil engineers out to make an inspection to get that engineer's opinion. So they work together for the same firm, and I've looked through again, and I don't see any evidence that they were given the other engineer's report. Their conclusion is that the wall is not failing, which is, that may be true, that the wall is not failing and that cracks can happen. And they thought, and basically they're thinking that the cracks are cosmetic, whereas the respondent engineer didn't think the cracks were cosmetic, at least the cracks in the wall. He felt like the cracks in the wall were due to the wall not being reinforced, which doesn't meet code and needs some remediation. So they definitely differ on the respondent. With the more thorough report, I think some remediation is needed, and the engineers who came out afterwards are not recommending remediation other than cosmetically filling the cracks. So, but there is no evidence in the file we have, Robert, that they read the other report.
But we still have your, I guess you're making it as a motion for them to open it back up, or
Yeah, I think that, or a recommendation to do that. And just ask that question, what did you rely on to make your letter? I mean, I think that's just a follow-up question that we need to ask.
It would actually be, I don't know if it has to be a motion, but if it's a motion, it would be a motion to open up a new complaint, not to reopen
correct.
this one.
No, that's correct.
No, not to
this is
open this one.
so that if it's a we don't have motions for complaints. I don't know if we do or not, but
if you'd like to make a request for us, we would need a motion and a vote.
Okay. Well, I'll make a request that we open up a complaint to see what basis the other two engineers made their report on.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed?
No.
And
Eric's no vote is noted.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
I know.
Can I make all motion carries? Okay. Go ahead.
Just Rob, to go along with your no, I would like to point out that typically we do what is defensible as professionals, and if you ask me to do a specific thing, I will do that specific thing. If I'm not hired to review your calculations, I will not review your calculations. I will not make that recommend. I would not do that if they ask me, can we do something cosmetically? And not that you can't ask this question, but this is kind of a can of worms here. So I think while I agree with the motion, I think we need to be careful about making a lot of assumptions that we may not, or we possibly shouldn't be making. Because when you open a complaint against someone, it's a complaint, okay? It's open. So the box is open.
Yeah, that was kind of my statement. We just don't know the parameters, but it was. We'll move forward with that.
Since
Rob's really making a statement.
I didn't really need to say anything other than to tell you I disagree. But since you brought it up, I'll tell you why I disagree. These guys are looking at concrete that has already been installed. And there's two kinds of concrete. There's the kind that's already cracked and the kind that's gonna crack. And it's very possible for two very competent engineers to look at a crack and come up with a different solution. It doesn't mean anybody was incompetent. It doesn't mean anybody short-circuited anything. It doesn't mean anybody did anything wrong. There's just a difference of opinion based on their experience, which they got paid to give. And I don't know this notion that we open a complaint against two guys that may have gotten a call from a friend and asked to look at something and given them, a quick opinion. If I were them and I got that favor asked of me and I got a complaint opened against me by the board, I don't think I would receive that very well. Now, Ricky's talking about no rebar in the wall, which is wrong. So that makes the person that we have already dealt with, what he's done is correct. Now, just because there's no rebar doesn't mean the thing's going to fall down. And that may make the other guys correct. So that's why I disagree with this notion of opening a complaint.
Okay. Let's move on forward. Stuart.
Number 4, 2021-036-141. Respondent self-reported discipline from another state. Respondent received disciplinary action in 2019 from the Louisiana Professional Engineering Land Surveying Board related to its engineering credentials. Respondent failed to report the action in 2019 within 48 hours to the Wisconsin Examining Board. Wisconsin opened a complaint soon after, but did not issue disciplinary action until April 12, 2021. Respondent self-reported the discipline to this board on May 3, 2021. This matter usually requires a letter of caution to be automatically issued by administration. However, there was a letter of caution issued within the last 5 years in 2017 for similar reasons, requiring this matter to be presented to the board. The discipline issued in Louisiana and Wisconsin was less than suspension or revocation. It was reviewed by board member Ricky Bursai. Mitigating factors is self-reported within the time required. No complaints in Tennessee except the letter of caution in 2017. So the recommendation here is just to issue another letter of caution.
Open this up for discussion. Motion.
So moved.
Proper motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries.
Number 5 is 2021-044-651. Complainant alleges that respondent has had an invalid PE license since 2008. Respondent joined a U.S. federal agency as an engineering officer and consistently presents himself as a licensed professional engineer. Complainant further alleges respondent overstates his work title and responsibilities, as well as asserts a non-existent position within the U.S. federal agency on social media. Respondent denies misrepresenting himself as a licensed PE, and having a license is not a condition of employment with the particular U.S. federal agency. Engineers with this agency do not engage in design work directly, rather act as project managers for contracts that involve design or construction. Respondent does not stamp designs and is the reason why Respondent has not reinstated his license since 2013 when he joined the agency. With regard to, quote, titles, as a Foreign Service Officer with the agency, Respondent's title is, quote, Engineering Officer, as is every other engineer regardless of their rank. However, in the Foreign Service, one often takes on multiple official and unofficial titles depending on the role filled. Respondent recently changed his LinkedIn title to Global Energy and Infrastructure Advisor in anticipation of transferring into a role in the agency that has yet to be determined or defined. Respondent has neglected to revise it until he is slotted into an official role, which is currently underway. Engineering officers who transfer back to Washington all fill roles that support the agency's missions globally with respect to infrastructure. However, to avoid any confusion, Respondent has replaced the LinkedIn title with Foreign Service Officer. Respondent has continuously represented himself on social media and resumes resumes as a professional engineer. However, his federal employment does not require a PE. Respondent has recently applied for registration as of June 16, 2021. It's reviewed by Board Member Stephen King. Mitigating factors: exempt through employment, applied for Tennessee registration. Aggravating factors is holding out as a PE on social media while not registered. So recommendation is authorize a civil penalty of $500 for using the appellation of professional engineer to the public while not registered.
Straightforward, Stephen.
I think Stuart adequately described the situation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Questions? We have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Motion carries.
Number 6, 2021-043-491. Complainant was hired to design a foundation for a plane hangar building. The vendor supplying the metal for the hangar presented structural drawings that were sealed by Respondent dated March 4th, 2021. Respondent's license has been expired since 2017. The plans have since been restamped by a properly registered engineer by the vendor. Respondent admits to sealing the plans on an expired license. Respondent states they were unaware the license had expired and the vendor had no knowledge of the expiration. There is no evidence of knowingly providing services on an expired license, and Respondent has never had a complaint filed against him in 32 years. Respondent states he has not stamped any other plans as he rarely obtains work in Tennessee. This was reviewed by Board Member Robert Campbell. Mitigating factors is low risk to the public, no prior history. Aggravating factors is sealed plans on an expired license. Recommendation: authorize a civil penalty of $500 for stamping plans on an expired license, and Respondent shall also take and pass the laws and rules exam.
Add, Robert.
The only thing I will add is that once they found out that the plans were stamped by the Respondent with an expired license, the hangar manufacturer went back and got those stamped by someone who had their active Tennessee license. So that's why I said there was no risk, a low risk to the public, because the plans were reviewed and stamped by somebody with their PE.
Work for them in-house or?
I think they hired people on the outside to review their structural drawings based on what because this guy did not work for them, I don't believe. I'm pretty sure of that. They hired contract consult structural guys. And I've been around this a little bit, and it's a metal building. Those airplane hangars, T hangars, are made by about 3 people in the world or something. So they went ahead and redid the plans with a stamp from a Tennessee registrant, and so back to the person design.
May I ask a question about plans? I think I seem to recall a language prepared under the direct supervision of an engineer versus prepared by somebody else and reviewed by an engineer.
I think the manufacturer builds based on those plans. I don't think they just send them a plan and say, I'm sure they've got typical sections and those kind of things that they use, or typical panel sizes and things, but and I did not ask for the calculations on this one, but it appeared that it was pretty complete plans too, but all the connections
Are generally okay with it was prepared, it was designed and prepared over here, and upon being surprised and caught, we hired an engineer who reviewed the plans and stuff.
They hired an engineer originally. The guy they hired was a licensed. No, sir. No, okay. The guy they hired originally was a licensed engineer in like 20-something states or something, but he just wasn't registered in Tennessee.
Got it. Okay.
And then they said, "Oh, heck, this guy's not registered in Tennessee, so we're not going to have our name on a." So I think I kind of thought the company did a pretty good thing by going back and getting, hiring somebody else to do it. To make sure they were legal and everything was good. No, this guy was he was a licensed PE in many, many other jurisdictions. And I think he's applied in Tennessee, reapplied, I believe, here in Tennessee, because he was active in Tennessee at one time.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to.
Okay, a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries.
That concludes the legal report.
And now, so the next on the list is director's report.
Second, my screen just went, my PDF just went blank, so I'm going to reopen that. Okay, got it back now. Let's see. The first thing I have on here is the financial sheet. You all received that in your packet. This is the financial statement through April of this year. Just as a side note, the fiscal year did close at the end of June. And as those final reports come in for the year end, I'll make them available to you all hopefully at the next meeting. But for point of reference, we do have a surplus right now of $2.4 million. And thus far, let's see, this year we have received, and I don't know why it's on two pages, $1.2 million. I'm sorry, $150,000 net surplus. Any questions regarding the finances? Okay, let's see. The next item I have is the grants discussion. I think, hold on, gotta get back there. Wanted to give you all an update on where that stands. In a grants committee meeting this past June, we did discuss the deadline for applications. Those the notices went out in June, directly after that meeting, to each of the 17 institutions that have previously applied for grants from this program. The deadline to receive those applications is September 3rd. The grants committee hopes to have them reviewed and turned around by the end of that month, so that they're ready to be voted on and recommended after the October grants committee meeting to the full board. And we're also in the process of closing out 2021's grants program. Receipts are coming in right now, and thus far, no snags in that department. The next time the next item I have is some conferences that are upcoming, which require some permissions. One for travel, one is local, and one may require some discussion. The landscape architects, there are two conferences coming up. One is is CLARB's annual business meeting taking place in Phoenix, Arizona. I've attached a meeting agenda for that conference, requesting permission from the board for myself and Mr. Parker to attend. As of now, that would be in person. However, if we do attend, if the two of us attend, then that would allow access to everyone else to the virtual attendance, should they want.
Motion for that, or?
Yes. Yes, board paying for the travel, so we'd need a motion.
This is Rick Thompson. I make a motion that we accept that recommendation for travel.
Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. You can go to the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next one is also landscape architect centric. It is the ASLA conference, and it is occurring here in Nashville. So there's no travel involved. There is a matter of registration fees. I can't remember. Is it in the? Yeah. I did not attach the registration fees. Mr. Parker, do you remember the registration fees off the top of your head?
Do not.
Okay. Wait.
Put them up.
I thought I had them written down here.
On to the next one while Blair looks up the fees, if you want to.
Okay, we can do that.
Is that okay?
That'd be great.
Okay.
So the next item is the NCEES conference, which is coming up. We were notified that due to restrictions, Maria Bush and I will not be able to attend that conference. It is strictly voting delegates only. And as COVID restrictions are coming around once again, it seems there may be further restrictions to that. But right now, I believe there might be a conflict with one of the board members who was voted to go. So, Mr. Barrick, would you like to address that, or you see if?
Sure. Very, very quickly. Louisiana is one of the states where COVID is raging. The mayor of New Orleans has issued a mask mandate. I have no spleen, so I have an immune system that is compromised. I'm supposed to go, but at this point I'm thinking it's kind of a stupid thing to do, so I'm bailing out. And have talked to Wanda and Michael. I would be happy for someone to go in my place if they wanted to go, or to attend virtually if that is possible, or to stand on my head, but I'm not going down there. Ricky Bursey is going. He intends to drive from Memphis, or he is going as of last night when I talked to him. So however that needs to be handled here, I'm at your service.
It's okay if we just send one. Does anyone know better than I do? I mean, I don't think it's. I think it's okay to just send one person, unless somebody knows something different.
I think it's fine to send one. We get one vote, so that's fine. It's like I said before. Just encourage you to listen all you can and pay attention, because it gives you some insight into the organization.
promise to go next year if y'all want me to.
You don't have to make that
haven't
promise.
tossed me out
Yeah,
yet.
you don't have to make that promise. We know. Okay, so Michael, you just want a motion for this as well, or do we need one for that, or same thing?
Let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go ahead. Since there was a motion for the vote initially, let's go ahead and make it official with a motion to just send one.
I'll make the motion.
All right, we have a motion. Second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those okay. Carries.
Aye.
That feed.
I'm still looking for the
I found
feed.
it.
I'm sorry.
Okay, you found
I
it.
found
Okay, all right.
The ASLA conference here in Nashville is $645. That's the early bird registration fee. That expires by August 18th. So we'd have to turn that one around pretty quick to get that one paid for. Otherwise, after that, it goes up to $795. Again, that wouldn't involve travel. However, it would involve a hotel room, probably for Mr. Parker.
I think hosting it is kind of a nice thing. Probably good for us to have. But that's my 2 cents. Is there any motion about that or any other discussion? Okay, motion.
Make a motion, we approve.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last conference on my list here is just another update. It's about the NCARB conference. Maria and I were able to attend that in person. Mr. Thompson joined virtually. I think I got a lot out of it. I think Maria did as well. Rick seemed pretty in tune. We could see him on screen. He seemed like he was paying attention. He only got up and left once for a couple hours. But we were stable. We were, for me, it was really good. First time, as you have only been with this program for a little over a year. So it was entertaining, educational, and to the point where Mike Armstrong, who is the CEO of NCARB, has reached out. He's going to be in town in October, would like to get together to carry on some discussions that we were having there at the conference. So I think it was a great benefit. I can't say that we'll be able to do it every year, but for this one, it was, I think, a great success.
I think we're glad you guys went, especially, you, since it's your first one. So I'm sorry that we couldn't be there with you physically, but we've got a few NCARBs under our belt, but I'm glad you were able to go, and that's awesome.
It was quite interesting, actually, because the building collapse in Florida had just happened the day we got there. So it was a lot of dinner conversations around that. So I learned a lot about architecture.
Okay.
Let's see. After that, would like to go on to establishing dates for 2022. We currently have only two more rounds of set dates for this year. One is the upcoming October meeting, which we'll get to in a second, and the next is the December meeting. I've gone ahead and I've pulled some dates here in keeping with the tradition of the first week of the meeting month. I would propose February 9th and 10th, which is the first full week of February, because the initial week starts in the middle. And I can send these all to you, unless you want to verify them now on the spot. That'd be fine.
Send them. I better.
Okay. So just for the record, I will propose February 9 and 10, April 6 and 7, June 8 and 9, August 3 and 4, October 5, 6, and 7, and December 7th and 8th.
Well, I've got a conflict with April 6th, but I may be the only one. We've got Masters.
Can you read those again, Stuart?
Or Mike, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. That's February 9, 9 and 10, April 6 and 7, June 8 and 9, August 3 and 4, October 5, 6, and 7, and December 7 and 8. Those are all still Wednesday, Thursday combinations, and committee meetings would be on the first date.
I still say send them out. That way we can just,
check your schedules.
Yeah, respond. I'm flashing through my cell phone, but I could be missing something, so that'd be better probably.
Okay.
I'll be a broken record. If we could look at something different location than this building for the retreat next year, if we could, that would be good.
That'll depend heavily on other circumstances, but yeah, we can take a look at it.
It just helps to have a little bit better meeting space where we can kind of gather around a little bit different than these tables and walls.
While that was not a motion, I absolutely agree with that. I think that most of the board members would agree with that. It's very helpful.
Okay. Noted.
Even if it's here in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, if it's here in Nashville, that's fine. But like one year we met at Vanderbilt, for instance, and they had some meeting rooms and things that we could kind of go break out in different areas, or there may be another space. It's just these rooms are typically kind of presenter rooms, not sit around the table kind of rooms, and it does make a difference. And I know it doesn't sound like it should, but it does. And
excuse me 1 second, Michael.
Yeah, Michael, if it makes any difference, I also have a conflict with the April 6th and 7th dates.
Mr. Wagster?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is, now that these are out, it will take a vote to approve the meeting dates. So when I'll send these out to you all in an email after this meeting, let me know via email the possibilities, if you've got conflicts, whatnot. If we get to a point where we see too many conflicts in one area, I'll look to reschedule and pick another set of dates. And I'll also take that into account for everybody. And then we can finalize and vote on these in the October meeting.
Can I ask a quick question? During COVID, allowing people technology, is that something that we intend to do going forward forever, or is that something that is going to go away?
No, I think that's going to probably be around for a while.
I will say we have had recent just information that we do need a physical quorum for the statement of necessities are getting a little, that allows us to have an electronic quorum and for people to attend virtually, but I think the preference is for in person. So I think as things unfold, and now that the Delta variant is, ramming back up, I think it'll to be determined. But when things were looking up, I think the preference was for sure that, you don't, just because you might not want to do the drive or whatever, that preference is for in person. Sorry, that's a very long way of saying for the statement of necessity, we need actual reasons rather than just don't want to drive to Nashville. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I know that was.
And since I live here, I don't have
my understanding.
I don't have an issue about travel. My question more is along the lines of, if I have to be out of town for some reason, would I be able to attend electronically, or I just have to be absent?
Moving forward, I think the intention is to leave an electronic capability.
Option.
Yes. You know, as evidence today, we have 4 members who are unable to attend physically, so they're online. We will eventually be moving our platform from WebEx to Microsoft Teams. I don't know if that's going to make it easier or harder, but what that will allow is for us here in this room to run the meeting virtually, so we can hit record and take care of all that business. Plus, it's you know, it's going to could be a very good way for the public to attend these meetings as well. So my understanding is that will be an option moving forward, and I don't foresee it going away, but I could be wrong. Right now, there's been nothing official made one way or the other.
Thank you.
No problem.
Can I weigh in just real quick on that? We've had that option to be able to do electronically for 3 years-ish or so, but it's we've had people that have called in from time to time for
prior
meetings.
to COVID. Then.
Yes, sir, prior to COVID,
Okay.
because there would be those situations where somebody had a doctor's appointment, whatever, right? And so we've had that option, but I agree with Marie. I think our goal as a board would be to make that a rather than a normal procedure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are we ready for the committees now? Reports?
I have one more thing to go over. That's the October meeting, the upcoming October meeting, which we're going to plan to have here in this building. Question to you all. Last year we were able to accomplish the October meeting in 2 days as opposed to 3 days. I know that 3 days has been a practice. I just want to get a sense from you all right now. Do you think we should shoot for 2 days again? Or would you like to take up 3 days?
If we can do it in 2 days, do it in 2 days.
If we can do the days, if that works, I think that's it. As long as we're not, sliding someone or something. I mean, I think my recommendation is like go with 2. As long as we're not like, well, to do 2, we have to cut off these, some things that we need to take care of.
Sure. No, we were able last year to get all the committees into a meeting time that I think everyone was comfortable with. Some committees obviously have a little bit more to discuss than others, but I think it worked out fairly well. Obviously, that was all done online, and here we'll be in person. We'll have the rooms down here, so if you're not in an active meeting, you'll be able to go to a different room, and we have the other smaller room available for workspace and all that sort of stuff. But I think given that we'll all be here and in close proximity, it would be pretty easy to pull off just rolling committee meetings back to back. And I know a lot of you are on committees that will go from, one meeting right into the next. So it could be, I think it's pretty plausible, but I'll send out the agenda before the meeting and make sure there aren't any conflicts.
I like that. Robert, I think you made a point last year that it was going to be, as long as we didn't short the time for the deans and the different educators to interact. And in person, that interaction is, I think it's very important. It's like going to the NCAR meeting. You have that opportunity. But one of the things that we didn't have this year was the marketing pitch, which, if we're going to talk about academics and things like that, that's great. But sometimes that got a little long, and I think that's one of the reasons that we went to 3 days is we had a little more subject matter than we actually needed. So I like the 2 days myself.
Okay.
Yeah, because if we focus, we can get it done in 2 days.
I will basically, I think, then reproduce the schedule that we used for last year's meetings, which was 2 full days. It was two very full days, but we got it done. And I think that, the shortest meetings were 30 minutes and some were 2.5 hours. So I'll reproduce that. I won't necessarily keep the same order. Want to make sure, somebody's got to go first, but it always doesn't always have to be the same group. right? So we'll take a look at those, and I'll get them out to you a week or two before the meeting.
I agree with what you said, Rick. I think that's fine. And just the only thing I would say is if it means that we need to be here longer, let's factor that in too, instead of saying, if we're here till 6 o'clock at night and we can get it all done. I think that's better than being here an extra day. That and give ourselves enough time to do. And I don't know if we're going to need that much time, but we don't need to run through things just to run through them because we say, we got to get done by 5. If it means we're here till 6 or whatever, then we're here till whatever. That would be my only thing. Sometimes I just don't want us to short circuit what we need to talk about. If we need to talk about something, we may not.
But we'll be able to take up as much time as we need.
Okay.
And there's not going to be anybody coming through at 5 o'clock saying you got to go.
That's fine. I just want the board. I think we do. We're all in that world, but I'd rather go home a day early and spend extra time each day.
And start earlier if we need to.
Yeah.
I agree, and I'm going to add that I think that the time with the deans is very important, not just to us, but to them. And so they travel this far. We just need to give them the respectful time. And yet, if we could hold back on the dog and pony show and, tell us about their grant system, I think that would be wonderful as well. But where I'm going with this is, let's look at the amount of time that we allocated for them last year. Let's think through whether or not that was enough time for them, or position during the day. Lunchtime, I guess, would make sense. But I just out of respect for them, and I think that they enjoyed hearing what other schools had to say as well. So just my 2 cents.
Sure. No, I think we did, if I remember right, I think we did okay. We might have bled over just a little bit in allowing people to, continue to talk. We might have gone over the assigned time frame a little bit, and we did have one dean who was unable to make that block, so he came and opened the next day for us. I think that was from MTSU, but I'll make sure to get all those invitations out as soon as possible to the deans so that they can make their plans. You all know that the meetings are coming. I want to make sure that they have enough time, ample time to react.
Would a 2-day meeting be Wednesday and Thursday?
That would be the initial intent, unless you wanted to make it Thursday and Friday.
Just didn't matter. Just wanted to know.
Yeah, I would shoot for Wednesday, Thursday. That'd be. Let me make sure of those dates. That's October 6 and 7. And then we'll start, based on the schedule, the building will, open at 8 o'clock. I don't know if that's too early or not. Maybe we start the second day at 8 o'clock, but I'll evaluate that. And like I said, I'll stay pretty close to the same schedule as last time. And with that, I think that is the last thing for me, officially.
Ready to move on to the committee reports, grants committee?
Mr. Heathcote has had to leave early. Is anybody who is with the grants committee would like to report? I'll be happy to do so. Otherwise, there's not, I don't think, a whole lot. We had a grants committee meeting in June just to reauthorize the amount of grant money that was going to be set out. Just that amount is $400,000. I guess that was upped from $350 right before I came on board. So I didn't quite know that, and there was some confusion. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that it was $400,000. And I informed the committee at that point in time that we were about to send out the notices. And at that point, we also established the deadlines. So those were put into the notices and sent to the universities. And almost everybody's acknowledged receipt of the initial email, but I will send out some follow-ups here because the deadline's approaching quickly. The definitions committee meeting, which was scheduled for this morning, was canceled. That is to allow for the architects committee to have a meeting to discuss the NCARB definition of architecture so that all of the definitions from this board can move forward in one piece. So architects, we will have that on the agenda for the October architect committee meeting. Engineers committee.
Thank you. We did meet yesterday. We had a little bit shorter meeting than we've had in the past. As you know, we've been worked pretty hard the past, 6 months or so on our alternative licensure proposal that's now been passed on to the department for review. Yesterday we did review 2 applications. We reviewed the NCWS statement of cooperation, which we decided to defer to the October meeting based on Maria's request to review. And we discussed our current process where we allow an applicant with a master's degree to have 3 years experience rather than 4. And I think that was the extent of our discussion. If any of the other engineering members have anything that I've forgotten, you can speak up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? I guess we can go to old business.
That's correct. I don't recall there being any old business that needed to be settled at the moment. So I think could probably move on to new business unless I've missed that. Oh, okay.
I know we discussed prior to this meeting about new business that typically I think we would be electing now, or so we're going to call for nominations, I guess now for officers, and then we'll vote on them at the October board meeting. Does that? Howdy?
We currently have a slate though, right, for the 22 or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have I guess we do because we have a.
Or do we? I mean,
we have a vice chair and a secretary now. Yeah. So I guess it'd be for. Do we vote on it for you guys? Help me out with this one. But wouldn't we still make the recommendation?
We do need to make a recommendation.
Yeah.
Have we met the nominating committees?
No, we haven't.
No.
Oh, should we do that?
Yeah.
We should we? I guess if a motion's appropriate, we could wait till October. I mean, we typically do it at this meeting, but
since we need
nominating committee,
should you got the nominating committee meet in October or sometime as a special meeting prior to?
We can schedule a nomination. We can schedule committee meetings anytime. We just need to give ample notice on the website.
We may want to do that prior to that meeting then.
That way we can.
Okay. Right.
Well, we can also, we can do it that right then, that morning. We can do it on the morning, either before or the morning before or the morning of the full board meeting. And then the nominations committee could make the recommendations to the full board. They could choose to accept the nominations at that time. I don't know that we would need to have 2 meetings for the nominations committee.
Whichever way, it doesn't matter to me. But we could also do since we can do committee meetings on Zoom, and I think it's going to be a pretty quick meeting. So I don't want to.
Okay, then we'll just go ahead and schedule it.
Schedule one for next sometime.
Sure.
And then I think it's pretty well. Most of it's pretty well in lockstep with the way our policies are, rule, whatever we have in there that kind of defines it.
Yeah, our cycle, as we call it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, if we'll just get schedule.
Okay, and I've made a note here that the August meeting next year will be nominations, so I don't forget. Thank you all
It's been
for.
It's been a different year.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks for not giving me too much grief over that.
I didn't even know how to call for a motion, so it's okay.
All right, so I'll be in touch with each of you on the nominations committee.
Any other new business or old business or anything else we want to bring up before we call for on the phone or Teams or whatever? No? Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Second, we're so moved.
That was seconded by Mr. Campbell. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That was